I'm about to drop him off. He says, Pastor, do you really want to find your friend? I said, yeah, I flew across the country. I do. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you how to find him. I dare you to come back here and you live on the street for a week. No money, no food, and I bet you find him. And I just thought in my gut, man, that's a Jesus-sized challenge.
Welcome to When You Look, where ordinary people share their extraordinary experiences, and you get to decide, was it coincidence or God? Will, welcome to When You Look. So great to have you on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Mick. I'm excited to connect with you. Enjoyed our conversation last week. Looking forward to today.
Yeah, man, really appreciate it for sure. You have an amazing story to share. We are looking forward to hearing every bit of that. But before we do, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. I've got 6 children that range between the ages of 34 and age 9. So it's quite a gap. And 4 are grown out of the house, 4 are married, 3 grandkids, 2 little girls at home that are beautiful. My wife Sandra and I do full-time mission work around the globe. Just got back from Peru, leading a medical trip with 31 people in Lima Tambo. Was incredible. Do different sorts of trips all year, and have been in full-time ministry for 35 years this September.
Yeah, awesome. Quite a full and active life, it sounds like there.
It's usually not very dull here, yes.
Awesome. Well, get us into the story here about Ed and give us a little bit of backstory and then walk us through things as they transpired.
All right. Well, I grew up in Northern Virginia, a little town called Reston that was a planned community. Moved there with my family in 1970. Shortly after my father passed away. My mom remarried quickly. I think she was overwhelmed with 4 kids. I was the youngest and still am. And so we got there and just dove in. And back then, Reston was a lot of woods, a lot of area to explore, and made friends with a guy named Ed Pelsner. And he and I had similar strange interests. Like, we like snakes, so we would go snake hunting. It was very normal for us to, climb a tree, we built a fort one time, basically with other trees, made a log cabin in the woods, which you wouldn't see in Reston nowadays, but back in the day, pretty cool. So Ed and I just really good friends. And one of those kind of friends, I don't know if you have any of these that you stay in touch with from the time they're younger and you're growing up and you just keep up every year. And so when I went off to college, Ed moved to San Diego, California, and he got involved with woodworking, became a just custom cabinet builder. You name it. You want unique furniture, Ed could do it. Really skilled. And so whenever I was in California, I'd look him up. We'd go out, get dinner, grab a beer, do whatever, hang out, and that was it. And so that's kind of it for the Ed story until later. My wife and I were there, I want to say 2014. We were there for a nonprofit trip, scouting out some churches we might have considered working with. At the time, Ed said, I want to get together with you. So I said, well, look, dude, I'm not in San Diego, I'm in Anaheim. And he said, no, I need to see you. So he caught the light rail and then biked to our hotel. And we were staying at an embassy suite, so it has that like extra room. So I just said, why don't you crash for the night because you came so far? My wife, Sandra, had just gone to bed. Ed and I caught up downstairs by the bar, and he proceeded to tell me life was not going well, that he was struggling. He told me that he felt like he'd lived sort of a narcissistic path and wanted to change that. And he said, I've seen you on Facebook taking all these trips. I'd like to take a trip. So I invited him to Ghana, Africa. We were going to Africa it was our first medical trip. And Ed said, I just don't have the money. And I said, well, God's not short of cash. If you will be willing to go get a passport and send it to me, I'll get you a visa and I'll find some folks to sponsor your ticket and you can go with me. He was pretty jazzed.
Yeah.
We hung up and the plan was he's going with me. And I heard from him again about a month or so later. He was working on the passport. We chatted a bit. He sent me a strange message on Facebook, basically, "Hey, man, I love you." Just out of the blue, "I love you." And when he was at the hotel, he was also acting different, like, asked me he would have never previously asked me to pray with him, but he said, "Will you pray with me? I'm just not well." I
Mm.
didn't understand it at the time, but, in hindsight, kinda makes a little more sense. So fast forward the clock, Ed never got me his passport, never sent it to me. He at some point ghosted me, didn't hear back, so we went without him in May that year, and then in September, I get a phone call, kind of life-changing phone call. His mother calls me. I still knew his folks, they had my number, and she says, um, "Ed's living homeless. Ed's decided
Wow.
to leave his business, he's been evicted, and he's living on the streets of San Diego." And it honestly was a bit of a shock. I remember holding the phone like, "Wait, what?" This is just last year. I was with him less than a year ago. He said he wanted to change his life. So I feel a little bit of guilt. Maybe I should have pursued him harder on that Africa trip. I told his mom, "Hey, I'll give him a call." She said, "No, no." He took his phone and threw it in a dumpster. There's no calling him.
Mm.
So this seems like a different level. And she says, "Man, I don't know. Maybe he's lost his mind. I don't know what's up." Because I was, interrogating her with trying to make sense of it. And so that's about it. For a few months, I just figured, I don't know, maybe it's a phase. I've never had a homeless phase, but maybe it's something people get. I don't know. Like, let's chuck it all. Let's camp. Um, I'm hoping it's something like that. But 3 months go by, I don't hear from him, and I'm really a basic faith guy. I've been in ministry, but I'm not. I'm not a. I don't try to overthink everything, even though I got a seminary degree. I just think when Jesus was asked what's most important, he said it boils down to two things: love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor the way you want to be loved. How would you want to be loved if the roles were reversed with any other human? And so I try to live life that way and think if Jesus thought that was the most important thing, it's probably worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
So he didn't say it was church attendance. He didn't say it was tithing. He didn't say it was a whole lot of other things. But he did say loving God and loving people mattered. Relationships matter. And so it's about now month 4. I can't shake it off. And the question occurs to me one morning, if I were homeless, how would I want to be loved? If I'm Ed in San Diego on the streets, and the first response that came to my gut was, I wouldn't want people to forget about me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be just written off as the homeless guy. I would hope it'd be really cool if somebody came looking for me. And I couldn't really shake that thought. So I told my wife, "Hey, I got to go look for Ed." And my wife knows I'm not a person who does a lot of talking. I'm more of a, if I get an idea in my head, I'm sort of a let's do it today or tomorrow. Bought a plane ticket and had a friend that was going to come with me who had previously been a Fairfax County police officer. Thought he'd be good to have with me.
Mhm.
But he canceled the last minute. I think his mother-in-law got sick or his
Mm.
dog ate his homework or something. He had some excuse last night. But apparently I think he was rethinking, like, wait, we're going to the streets. And so I flew to California, stayed at downtown at a in the gas lamp district of San Diego, and I took a photo of Ed and I showed it to everybody. And I'm talking to every homeless guy I can find. Have you seen my friend? Unrealistically, I thought, I'm gonna find the park where all the homeless people hang out, and I'm gonna see Ed there, and I'm gonna talk some sense and bring him home. I thought it was that easy. I did not know, which I do now, that California is the homeless capital, not just of the country, but of the world. More homeless people there than any other state. LA is said to have 90,000 homeless. San Francisco, about 50,000. And San Diego at the time was 13,000. So I'm not seeing homeless people at one park. They're everywhere. They're on the streets. They're in the parks. I'm overwhelmed. And I'm showing Ed's photo. I'm not really getting a lot of response. I called my buddy Dustin, who was the cop that was going to come with me, and he had some good insight. He said, Will, is the picture you're showing of Ed just of Ed? And I said, yeah, why? He said, no, homeless people are protective of each other. You need a picture that's you and Ed to show you guys are friends in the photo. So I literally called my wife, honey, look on my computer, find a picture of me and Ed, text it to me. I'm going to go to, and I went to local Walgreens. I did a 1-hour photo and I listened to my buddy Dustin and I took the photo around with the two of us. Look, we're friends. And I'm all over it. 4 days walking the streets. I centralized my look into Ocean Beach because there were more people saying they had seen him there than the downtown area. And I finally meet one guy by the name of Ted. And I call him Crazy Ted only because he looked like the Unabomber. He looked like Ted Kaczynski. His hair is just frizzed out and he's got a scruffy beard and he's wearing old military clothing and big old jacket and sitting at a park bench. And he said, I don't know if I trust you, man. You just flashing a picture. I don't know you're a pastor. Like, well, how would you prove that, Mick? So he challenges. I've never been challenged. Maybe you're a lying pastor. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm a fake pastor. I'm like, if I was lying, who would I be? He's like, maybe you're a cop or a bill collector. I'm like, okay. And I just sat there a minute. I said, well, would you believe me if I showed you a video online of me preaching in a church? And the guy just goes, that'll do. I'm like, okay. I'm literally on YouTube. I find a church I had preached in recently. I'd show him and he goes, all right. He says, where's your car? I'm like, excuse me? And I did have a rental car, but I wasn't excited about giving Ted a ride. But he's like, he's in Uptown. He's over in Gaslamp District. I said, is he? And we were in Ocean Beach. It's a long walk. So I said, okay. So I decide I'm going to drive Ted. I'm on day 4. I haven't found him. I've only got a day and a half left. So Ted gets in my car and puts all his, the homeless crap. He's got this little thing he's toting along. So he puts all that in my trunk and he's driving. And as I said, he looks a little nuts. And it's the first homeless guy I've ever driven somewhere. So I literally one hand on the wheel, one hand just kind of in case I need to bless him. But I drove, we drove downtown. He's giving me instructions. I'm a little on edge and we parked near some Starbucks. He insists this is where he and Ed hang out. So we go in, no sign of Ed. I'm looking everywhere. He quickly gets in line for a coffee. Like, hey, pastor, you mind giving me a coffee? I'm like, mm-hmm. And I'm thinking at the moment when I'm not seeing Ed, surely there was a closer Starbucks if you just needed a coffee. Like, is this all? And I said, hey, Ted. And by the way, the barista totally knew who Ted was. Like, hey, Ted. So I'm like, why don't you ask about Ed if they've seen him? So he asked the barista, hey, have you seen Ed? And the lady goes, who's Ed? I'm like, oh, this is how it's going to be. Anyway, we both get a coffee. Then he asked me, we don't see Ed. He asked me to drive him back to Ocean Beach, of course. But I'll tell you what, it was that conversation on the way back was worth the price. Because we're driving back. And after he asked me if he could smoke weed in my car, and I said, no, it's a rental and no, thank you. I just said, hey, man, this has been fun and all, but I'm about to drop him off. He says, pastor, do you really want to find your friend? I said, yeah, I flew across the country. I do. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you how to find him. I dare you to live on the street. He said, you come over here. You got your nice clothes on. You're staying at a nice hotel. We don't trust you. We being the homeless community. You don't have street cred. You don't know my world. You don't even know Ed's world. You have no idea. I dare you to come back here and you live on the street for a week. No money, no food, and I bet you find him. I bet you'd learn a lot. And I just thought in my gut, man, that's a Jesus-sized challenge. That's legit. I couldn't shake it, I didn't find Ed. I flew home. I did not want to go alone. And I do a lot of speaking in churches. So I was sharing at Christian Fellowship Church in Ashburn, Virginia. And while I was preaching, I just said, hey, man, who wants to do the cheapest mission trip ever? I thought I'm going to use this as a recruiting op. And who wants to do the cheapest mission trip ever? Who likes camping? Who wants to go to California? It's going to be so much fun, man. It's going to be good times. Cheapest fishing trip ever. We're going to live on the streets. You don't even need to, you just need a sleeping bag and a backpack. And literally, two guys approached me after service. One guy I knew and one guy I'd never met before, Steve Bowman, who ran a heating and air conditioning company there, and another guy by the name of Brian Carruthers. And we literally decided we're going to do this. And they flew with me to California. They bought their own
Wow.
tickets. We stayed a night downtown in the hotel and then left all our valuables. We decided, they were like, what's the game plan? I don't know. What do you say? Let's be homeless. I just said, don't shave for like 2 weeks. Let's look rough. Don't wear anything valuable they can steal. And we're doing no money because in Luke 9, when Jesus sends out 12 disciples, and in Luke 10, when he sends out 72 disciples, he tells them, don't bring anything of value for your journey. Don't bring food. So I said, we're going to follow the Jesus plan. There's no food. It just sleeping bag, backpack, and then a battery to charge your phone because we can't plug in,
Hmm.
And that was it. I honestly, not knowing anything, these guys decided to do it with me. We hit the streets Monday morning and we walk from downtown San Diego to Ocean Beach. And I thought I should probably get to know these guys. I'm like, what's your story? What's your life story? We had a lot of time walking, and then we just stop and talk to homeless people along the way. And we decided we were getting hungry. I realized I was with two total introverts, and they were like, I said, we got to panhandle, man. We got to get some money. I'm hungry. And they're like, yeah, we're hungry, but we're both introverts. Can you panhandle for us? What? These guys like stand behind me on the street, like, you go, you go. They're like my backup support. And I'm on the curb in Ocean Beach, like, hey, I'm homeless. We're trying to get some money for food. I remember some people stopping going, you guys don't look that homeless. I'm like, we are. Like, we're just homeless this week. Like, we chose to be. And I remember two women stopped and said, you chose to be? What's that mean? I said, well, my best friend's homeless and I'm living on the street to find him. And when they heard that, they said, that's actually really cool if it's true. I'm like, what do you think? I'm lying? They go, well, if you're lying, it's pretty messed up. I'm like, well, look at my Facebook page, man. I'm not lying. We have a bunch of people praying for us. Our wives are concerned about 3 homeless men out here. And sure enough, one lady said, I don't have any money. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. And then she caught me off guard. She said, because I've said that to many homeless people. Sorry, man, don't have any money. Who carries cash? And she said, but let me go to the ATM and get you some money. And she goes across the street, pulls out $20 and hands me money. And I told the guys, I got 20. How much do you guys have? I'm excited. Now I did share with my introverted friends, and they were like, how much do we need? I'm like, well, let's go across the taco stand and see how much we need for 2 tacos and a beer times 3, which is what we did. And first night out on the street, we slept out at Ocean Cliffs, if you're familiar with San Diego. And about 1:30 in the morning, our first wake up was the police officer with a flashlight in the face. Gave a little nudge to my shoulder with his foot and said, I remember his question was, when I woke up with the light in my face, do you read? I thought it was a weird question. I said, I do. Is there a bedtime story? I don't understand the question.
Right.
And the cop was like, what are you, a smart aleck? I'm like, sometimes, yes. But what's your point? And he said, the sign over here says no sleeping on the beach. And I said, well, we came from that direction. We didn't come from that direction. I didn't see the sign. And he said, what's your problem? What are you all doing here? And I said, I'm living homeless to find a friend. He goes, where are you from? And I said, Ashburn, Virginia. And he said, really? I'm gonna quiz you and find out if you're lying. So I've never had an Ashburn quiz. He said, what county is Ashburn in? I said, Loudoun County. He goes, no way. My brother's a cop in Loudoun County. I'm like, what are the odds? The guy goes, that's so cool. He lets his guard down. He's totally cool. Let us sleep there for the night. And that was our introduction. A lot of rain that week. We actually went back out. We did not pack tarps. That became a tire later, but we ended up begging for more money to buy 3 tarps because we learned at night you need a tarp if it's raining. So we got better at being homeless, man. We built a little
Yeah.
street bread. We learned our way and talked to a ton of homeless people. And listen, Crazy Ted was right.
Hmm.
When we were living on the street, we would tell people, "Hey, we're living out here to find my friend." If I had $1 for everybody that said, "I wish I was Ed. I wish somebody was looking for me."
Mm.
Um, we kinda developed a rhythm where we would ask people, "Have you seen my friend?" I'd show a photo, and then second question was always, "Where should we look?"
Hmm.
Now, if you whether you've seen them or not, where do you recommend we look? We'd always do what they said. And then number 3, because I didn't wanna use people, we would say, "Hey, what's your story? How'd you get stuck on the street? Like,
Yeah.
what landed you here, and how long have you been here?" And we would just sit and listen to story after story. I mean, you got 5 days from Monday to Friday night on the street, and we would just listen, and I'm telling you what, I could never be a full-time counselor, because to listen
Mm.
to shipwreck life after shipwreck life, it is a downer.
Mm.
And really heavy, and we didn't bring money or anything to give them, so and we didn't wanna come across as preachy either. So when we finished listening, we usually ask you questions along the way and then just say, "Man, what would you love God to do in your life? Is there
Mm.
anything we can pray for?" And I wanna say 99 out of 100 would, if you listen well, would say, "Would you please?" And we had people,
Mm.
man, homeless guys, just men and women weep with us after sharing their story. When you listen to somebody's story and you really take time and don't rush them, it's one way to give them dignity. You dignify a human by showing them they matter and they have value and
Yeah.
purpose. Just to listen. I mean, it's easy to give $5 to a homeless guy and move on. Number one question is always, "Hey, man, should I give him money?" You give it. It's a transaction. They might just go buy drugs or alcohol like you're thinking. They might not, but they probably will. Um,
Mm.
but I tell you what, you take the time to ask somebody their story. You really got time, then say, "I'm not going to pay for your food, but let's go get a meal together and sit across the table, and I'll treat you like an equal." So there was a lot of that week. It just so happened that in Ocean Beach, while we were talking to our homeless friends, I think it was day 2, that we noticed that there were new condos that went up on the beach that had somebody thought it was a great idea to have an underground garage by the beach, and they all flooded. And so it was apparently not the best design. And so ABC News was there doing a story on these multi-million-dollar condos that had flooded and really angry car owners out there. And so one of the homeless guys, a guy by the name of Clay, said, "Hey, man, we should tell your story's awesome. We should tell it the ABC News correspondent." So he runs over, "Let's go." And he's excited. He runs up, approaches the news lady and said, these guys are living homeless from Virginia to find their friend." And the lady, Bree Steffen, ABC News San Diego, perks up and goes, "What? Like, no way, really?" And
Yeah.
so she turned and asked us a few questions, said, "I'm going to ask my boss. I want this story." Sure enough, I gave her my number. About 20 minutes later, she calls me, said, "We're in, we're coming. You guys are the 6 o'clock story." So we got bumped in front of the flooded garage, as exciting as that would have been. And so they interviewed us, did this whole 6 o'clock spot, interviewed us in a couple different places with the homeless and walked with us. And what was amazing was they let us put Ed's photo up and share my
Mm.
story. And then they made a way for people to call into ABC News and say if they had an Ed sighting. So
Wow.
Brian and Steve, myself, Bree would message me and say, "There's a sighting over here." So while we were homeless, we agreed to not carry money, but I did have Uber on my phone. So when we heard there was a sighting, we would jump in an Uber and take it to wherever they said they saw him. We would search. And it was at that time I met a gal named Russo over on Arena Boulevard, which was near where Ed's wood shop had been on Hancock, and she said, "I know Eddie. I partied with him last night." I'm like, "Partied? What do you mean? You drinking weed? What do you mean?" And she said, "No, no, no, meth." And I remember I said to her, "Are Ed's a mether," and she laughed at me. She's like, "Mether's not a word; it's a tweaker." And I hadn't seen Breaking Bad yet, so I didn't know the terms. And she she then asked if she could borrow my phone to call her dealer, and I give her my phone, and a buddy of mine snapped a photo, and I remember I've seen the photo of myself, and my face is total shock. Like, Ed is a
Mm.
tweaker. He's a dick. Well, maybe this makes sense. That explains why he hit the street. That explains a bit of his story. So do you keep looking for a guy if you find out he's a drug addict, or do you write him off? Well, the question would be, if you're a drug addict, how would you want to be loved? You know?
Yeah.
So we kept going back, man. I would tell you one, um, this is sort of funny. It was Tuesday night, was not funny at the time. Me and Steve and Brian are sitting at Denny's because a number of the waitresses said that Ed would come in late at night. So we're like, let's do a steakout at Denny's. It's open all night.
Hmm.
If Ed's coming in the middle of the night, let's just camp out here. And so we're sitting there, and then Brian, one of the guys with us, says, I realize this might not be for me. And I think I'm going to have to go home early. I got work to do and other stuff. And Steve and I are just processing what he's saying. He goes, like, well, when are you leaving? And he goes, oh gosh, my Uber's here. Gotta go. He literally walks out and he's gone. Tuesday night is just, then there were two. Then it's me and Steve for the
Wow.
rest of the week. And the guy's a great guy. I mean, he gave us, Sunday to Tuesday, but it was still like, oh, wow, if you felt a little safer with three men than two, you
Mm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
but, man, it was a real adventure. And I would say, the pivot on there's two things I would say about the pivot. In other words, the journey that shifted. Um, I came looking for Ed. We looked for Ed all week, but as I said, Nick, we interviewed other people. But God used a kid by the name of Kyle that really grabbed my heart. We met Kyle early in the week, but it was Thursday afternoon. We ran into Kyle again at Ocean Beach. And he looked rough, and Steve and I had not been sleeping, man, at night. And what we found out was the cops will come at night and they make you move along. But during the day, you could sleep anywhere, and it's legal. You could crash out, sleep on a
Huh.
park, and nobody's going to give you grief. That's why you see a lot of homeless guys sleeping during the day, I believe. So we're exhausted. We're sitting on the grass at Ocean Beach, and we see Kyle, and Kyle's partying with some kids. And then he walks our direction, and he's probably 10 feet in front of us. And then Kyle starts vomiting, and pretty nasty. And it was what he did next that really threw me. I've never seen a human do. He's standing over his vomit with his hands on his knees, and then he's staring into the vomit, and then he reaches into the vomit, and he grabs some vomit and puts it in his mouth, and he eats it.
Oh, wow.
And Steve and I are speechless. We're both just focused in, drilled in on him, and then he vomits again. And I said to Steve, "Man, that kid's got to be hungry." And two people there was a guy handing out sandwiches, a couple guys walking around the park to homeless people, and they'd given us both a bologna sandwich. And I'm like, this kid needs something to eat. And I said to Steve, he's hungry. And Steve said, no, no. Steve caught what happened. I didn't get it. He said, when he was partying with those people, he took pills, and he vomited the pills that he took. And so he so badly wanted to be high that he was ingesting the pills out of his vomit to get high, but his stomach wouldn't let him keep them. So I said, I remembered his name. He said, hey, Kyle, come here. I've got 6 kids, and 2 are sons, and he looks like he's one of my son's age. So I said, come here. And he plopped down a couple feet in front of us. And I just said, hey, Kyle, what's going on, man? And he said, I just vomited. I said, yeah, we saw. It was pretty disgusting. And I said, "You hungry? Here's a sandwich, man. I got a sandwich for you." And he took it. I'll never forget. He took a bite and goes, "This sandwich is disgusting." I'm like, said the guy that just ate vomit. So, I don't know. So, uh, he's sitting there, and I said, my friend Steve and I were looking for my friend, and he's a tweaker. He's a meth addict. And then Kyle, like it was a badge of honor, says, "I'm a tweaker." I'm like, "Are you?" I said, "What's your story, man? How old are you?" He said, "I'm 21. So where are you from?" He said, "I'm from Irvine, California." And I said, "Well, what do you, do you play sports? What did you do? What's your story that you got out here?" He said, "Well, I played lacrosse and rugby." I said, "Rugby?" I said, "That's more of a private school." He goes, "Yeah, it was a private school sport." I said, "So wealthy family?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Let me ask you a question, Kyle. If my boys were out here, I'd be looking for them. You got anybody looking for you?" He said, "No." I said, "Come on, man. You got a mom or dad looking for you." Then he says, I don't have a mom or dad." Like, "I don't understand your answer. What do you mean?"
Yeah.
And he said, I was raised in a foster system as a foster home kid. So, okay. And I said, "How about your foster parents? They looking for you?" And he shook his head. And I did youth ministry for a lot of years. I just had a sense, and I was a psych major for my undergrad degree. And I just said, "Were you abused, Kyle?" And he nodded yes.
Mm.
I said, "Physically, sexually?" He said, "Both." And then we're all sitting there silent. And I said, "Would you rather be high than think about your past?" And he said, "Yes, sir." What do you say to that kid?
Mm.
I, uh,
Wow.
I was trying to think, what can I do to bless this kid? I got no money. But then on the corner, I looked over and I realized there's a Starbucks. And I quickly realized I have the Starbucks app and it's got a credit card attached. So I said, "Kyle, how would you like a Starbucks?" He goes, "I would love a Starbucks." I'm like, "Let's go, man. Let's go. You need to clean that gullet of yours that's vomit baloney filled, man. Let's go." And so we walk over to the Starbucks and we get in line. And by the way, one thing you don't think about when you're homeless is where you're going to the bathroom.
Mm.
You need bathrooms. And because there's so many homeless in California, most of the city bathrooms put a combination lock on the door because they don't want homeless in there trashing it. And if you're not a paying customer, you don't get the combo. So I'm just excited. We're going to be a paying customer. I get to use bathrooms. So I go use bathroom.
Yeah.
Kyle and Steve are in line. I come back out of the bathroom, and there's some dude standing behind us, and he goes, "Hey, man, you can't cut in line." I'm like, who is this guy? What is this, Disney? I just said, "What?" I said, "Bro, I was using the bathroom. I was in line. I went to the bathroom. These are my friends." He goes, "No, you." Then, like he's the line cop. He goes, "You can't like leave and come back." I'm like, "Is that a rule?" I don't. Oh, wow. And I'm really annoyed. I really want to tell this guy something else. And but I had a moment. I remembered, in reflection. Here's why I'm here, to bless people. So I said, "Hey, buddy, looks like you've had a bad day. Why don't I treat you to coffee? I'll get you a drink." And then he totally changes his demeanor. Like, "Oh, no, no. Hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry. You're good. You're good." I'm like, "No, no, let me buy you a drink. You clearly have
Yeah.
something you have something going on. Let me get you a drink." And then he says, "Oh, it's an expensive one." I'm like, "Dude, order your frou-frou drink. I don't care." And he did. It was like some kind of something twist frap thing. And then Kyle gets up and orders, and most of my homeless friends that week all got like strong coffee with 12 sugars. But Kyle
Mm.
orders, his little mocha frappuccino, venti. He knows how to order. He's definitely grew up wealthy kid because he knew. So he orders his drink. We all get our drinks. We wait. And after Kyle's getting antsy, and he's like, "I got to go. I got to go." Well, yeah, I don't know where he's got to go, but I just said, "Okay. Well, Kyle, tell me this. What else do you need? Do you need anything else from us?" I don't know what I'm going to give him. Maybe a
Yeah.
Starbucks card. Maybe I can get him a gift card at Starbucks. But he said, and I'm not prepared for his answer. He said, "Yes, I do." I said, What's that?" "I just want a hug." And Now, keep in mind, now this when we met him, he has a winter coat on. He has no shirt on, so we gave him a shirt out of our bag because he had no T-shirt. He had bare feet, which Starbucks didn't notice, so they probably would have chucked him, and jeans on. And he still got vomit on his jacket, but he asked for a hug. We're in the middle of Starbucks next to the line with our drinks. And I hugged that kid, man. I hugged him like he was one of my sons. And I was thinking I was thinking when I hugged him that I'm gonna hug him the way this kid deserved to be hugged by a dad that he didn't have. And you know when some people just like hold the hug a minute? He held it. And it's hot, dude. Starbucks line people are watching us now. Like, what's this? What's going on over here? You know? And two homeless men hugging, and I didn't give a crap. I was so moved, and he left, thanked me again. And it was right after that the line Nazi says, hey, hey, I'm watching you guys. I'm watching you guys. What's this all about? Like he saw us hug Kyle. And I said, well, we tell him the story, what we're doing, looking for Ed. And he says, no way, man. My son is homeless. He said he's been on the street. I paid for him to get his master's degree, and now he and his girlfriend have decided to live on the streets. He said his street name is Firewalker. Have you met him? And I said, I have not met him. And then, of course, he's like, would you guys pray with me about my son? Because you guys are looking for homeless people. And then literally while we're talking to that guy, over his shoulder, and Steve's shoulder, I see these two women. And this is now we bumped out onto the street in front of Starbucks in Ocean Beach. And these two women just start making out, which I thought was not something you see in Fairfax all the time. And I kind of looked over for a minute, caught my eye, and then the lady looked back at me and she stares. Then she stops kissing the other lady and she goes, hey, I saw you. I'm like, oh gosh. And I quickly look away like, this is just getting weirder, man. Get me out of here. Yeah. Yet I'm a little emotional about and I hear her. When you look away, I'm pretending like now I don't even see her, but I can see in the corner of my eye, she's headed our way like, hey, and I hear her, I saw you. I'm like, oh, geez. And she gets right up to us. She goes, I saw you. I'm like, did you? I just turned and said, did you? She goes, on the 6 o'clock news. Oh, I saw you. You're looking for your homeless friend, Ed. I said, yes, ma'am, I am. She said, I'm Sharon. I said, hey, Sharon, nice to meet you. Feel like I know you now. This is wonderful. And then she says to me, can I tell you what? My son was homeless and I looked for him everywhere. And
no way.
Now, 2 parents now in a row. So I look for him everywhere. Can I give you some advice how I found him? I'm like, sure. What's your advice? She said, I got frustrated looking. I went down to the beach one night and I lit a candle and I asked Jesus, will you help me find my son? Did you know I found him within 24 hours? Have you tried that? I'm like, I haven't asked Jesus, but I haven't lit the candle yet, But she's like, well, let's pray. And so we're praying with Sharon and her girlfriend and this other dude. And it was, God used those experiences just to get my heart, because then it became bigger than Ed. And then we just kept going back. And so everybody always asked, did you find Ed? And kept flying across the country. We'd go twice a year to look for Ed. Trip 6, I was discouraged. And trip 7, we found Ed. And we got a tip off. He was in a different city. The payoff was correct. We did find him there. But then the question was, should we keep going to San Diego? But we had met so many people there that would always ask, when are you guys coming back? So we felt like we were leaving them hanging if we didn't go back. So we kept going back to San Diego, even though Ed was in a different city. And to this day, we keep going. And we make trips every year. We live on the street for the week. It's life-changing for me. I've had 2 of my grown adult daughters do the trip with me. My wife has done a homeless trip with me. A lot of my friends have done it. And we probably had about 50 people live on the street with us. But our goal is not to up the street population with living out there. The goal is, and I think what changed in me was, when Jesus said, God has a heart for the least of these, the people that society looks down on, and social programs won't change them, but loving people will, I believe. We have a phrase, a slogan we use now. It's be relational, not transactional. A
Mm,
transaction, I can give you $5. I can give you a plate of food. But if I sit down and know your name and get to know your story and care about you, it's a little different. So that idea of being relational, not transactional, then that changes my heart. I can't tell you. Steve, by the way, Steve Bowman's a superhero. He did so many trips with me. I lost count how many he's done. I've done 29 trips to the streets. We've done 13 different cities now around the U.S. And every trip I come back a little bit different. Um, and there were a number of trips where Steve and I would be flying home, and on the plane, he and I would both have a breakdown. Like, I remember just crying because it was like
mm,
the release of 5 days of life stories that you feel like you're carrying, and then you just, you know, your heart breaks for the Kyles and the Eds and the so, yeah, that's the gist of it, and my wife and I, like I said, we do other mission trips that are all kinda geared towards our medical trip is, let's take medical care to people that can't afford it, and just love them, serve them, rather than whine about, "The government should have more healthcare." What how about do something about it?
mhm.
Take people to them, serve them, love them. We go and we invite doctors, nurses, we take medicines, free medicines, and then we also have a little station for prayer. People go, I just like somebody to pray with me. And we do that in the medical trips. And we do another trip called Serve the Servants, where we go out to Uruguay and we invite all these people because it's the most secular country in all of Latin America. So we get all people that run nonprofits and churches and stuff, and we serve them. We're like, let's take care of the people that take care of the least so that they don't quit and throw in the towel. So we bring them counseling, encouragement, marriage counseling. We brought a masseuse for them, get a break,
Mm,
get time, build in free time with their spouses, and just say, why don't you guys go home? Our dream is send them back refreshed so that they keep serving.
yeah,
So anyway, so that's kind of what we feel like our call is, our place on the planet. Let's serve and help people. And it's really, I appreciate you inviting me on the podcast, Mick, because it's my hope that enough people hear the story that the story changes you. A lot of people, if you're a pessimist and you're going half empty, you're like, you ain't gonna change the homeless population in the world. You're not gonna, yeah, probably not.
right.
But if I change the way you see them, it changes it. Because then we enlist another person that's actually going to treat them differently, love them differently, and loving a person might change them.
Right.
We have had a number of them change and get help, but you can't help anybody that doesn't want help. Doesn't want to help themselves. You waste your time trying to pull a guy off the street who doesn't want to get off the street or doesn't want to kick a habit or doesn't want to forgive a person they're angry with that the bitterness keeps them on the street, you know? So
Yeah. And you encountered some of that with Finding Ed. Isn't that right?
this is true. Yeah. So trip 7, we found Ed. Um, he was in Maui, Hawaii. I got a tip off from a social worker who found Ed. And she looked him up on the internet and found the ABC News story and then got a hold of me. So she tells Sandra and I, "Hey, it was 2017, Ed's in Maui," and we verify, and sure enough, he is. So we fly to Maui, hunt for him. I find him on day 2, which was kind of miraculous,
Mm,
small island. And he's living in the woods, but he works part-time at a bike shop. He cleans up their trail bikes, $5 a
mm,
bike cash. So he does that on the side. And sure enough, I see him and he's friendly, but he has the side effects of meth. He's very paranoid. He asked me if I work for the government. Like, Ed, dude, we grew up together. Stop yourself. And Ed but we offered to take him to lunch, dinner, whatever. He didn't want anything. I said, "Dude, let's just get a beer." He wouldn't. It was unlike Ed to not take a freebie, and he wouldn't take any. So then Ed takes off. We snap a photo. Ed takes off, and as quickly as I found him, he's gone. And then I'm rethinking all the things I wish I'd said to him. This is trip 7.
Mm.
I've lived homeless 7 times to find Ed. Finally found him, and I'm not. Imagine I had really thought through what's my game plan when I find him. I
Yeah.
just thought I'm gonna have a great conversation. I didn't picture it's gonna be 5 minutes, he's gonna take off. So now I don't know, I'm just, like, rethinking what I wish I said, and we got a lot of people at home praying, "Let's find him one more time," because now I know what I'm gonna say. So
Mm.
Sandra and I spent the next 3 days. It was not a vacation. We hunted everywhere we could in Maui for him, and on the last day, we find him, and, downtown Paia, and, Sandra elbows me and sees him coming. And I said, "Hey, man, let's talk." He's carrying a bike tire. It looks like it's flat. And he said, "No, Will." He gives me a breakup line, like, "It's not you, it's me." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I can't hang out." And then he just tries to take off. I'm like, "No, no, no. We're leaving in the morning. We got to talk." He says, "No." And
Yeah.
then he starts to run, and I proceeded to chase him. So I chased him across the street. We ran through traffic. We run through a parking lot. He's yelling, "Stop following me." And I'm chasing. I tried to lighten it up by like, "This is like middle school tag," and I'm trying to make it funny, but he doesn't find the humor in it. And then he starts running up a street, Baldwin, and what bothered me was I try to stay in shape, but he's outrunning me, and I'm like, "How is a drug addict outrunning me? This is pissing me off." And I prayed a prayer. I prayed a prayer I've never prayed. I was like, "God, make me fast." Make me. I think Elijah prayed that, and he outran a chariot, and I'm just like, "Make me fast," and it didn't work. I was waiting for the gears to kick in, and I see Ed, the margin's getting wider. He turns
Mhm.
right at the top of the hill, and he's out of sight now. And I do remember that my thought process, it was, "God, why would you bring me this far to not get him? Why
Mm.
would you really 7 trips?" Um, I couldn't find him, and I get to the top of the hill, and I looked right in front of me was our rental car, and I had the keys in my pocket, so I was like, "No way." So God made me fast because I got in the car, and I started driving up the street. I get another block or 2 up, and Ed's hitchhiking with the tire in his hand. So I pull over. He's never thinking it's Will in the car, so I pull over and open the door, and he, like, goes to get in. I was like, "What the what are you what are you doing?
Wha
How did you get here?" And he starts to curse me, and I said, "Ed, just can you just give me a minute?" Like, dude, I promise you I'll leave you alone. Um, I just said, "I love you, man. Your mom and dad love you, your sister, your brother, everybody's worried about you." Um, I said, "I know about the drugs. I know about your meth habit. I love you anyway, man. I don't care. I'm here to help. I've lived on the street to find you." And he said, "I can't do it anymore." And I said, "You can't do what?" And he said, "I can't do friendship." There's just so much
Mm.
shame attached to uh, his story that he just didn't want everybody to know. So I what I didn't share was that at one point when I was in San Diego, I met a friend of his by the name of Stephanie, and Stephanie said, "I have a box of his stuff," and in the box she shows me was his passport. So when I told Ed to get the passport originally, she had it, and I convinced her to give it to me. I said, "I got a better chance of finding him than you do." So I said, "Ed, when you're ready to do it that mission trip with me, I got your passport." Stephanie gave it to me. He said, "All right." I said, "Anyway, I love you," and then I drove away, and that was it. And
Mm.
Sandra and I decided at that time that we would go back every year to both San Diego and then once to Maui and just wait on Ed and say, "We love you. When are you ready?" So we did that for 3 years straight, um, to let him know we loved him and try to bring him home. And uh, the real miracle occurred in right when the pandemic hit. Uh, I'd actually prayed with an old dude, looked like Gandalf, big old white bearded guy in Peru, and he says, Gandalf, Gordon says to me, really great connection with God when he prays and hears with great clarity. And he just said, the Lord said to me that stop praying that Ed will get clean and pray that God will move him off the island. I'm like, that's an interesting prayer. So we had our church fast and pray for Ed. And sure enough, during the pandemic, he had a bike accident. And Donnie, who owns a bike shop in Paia, would give me regular updates. And he said,
Hmm.
I found Ed's bike. It's trashed. There's blood in the street. I don't even know if he's alive. And so he tells me he'll do some checking around. Sure enough, he gets back to me and said, hey, the police told me that Ed was medevaced, that during the pandemic, they don't want homeless at the Maui hospital. It's too small. So they've been medevacing him to Queens Memorial in Oahu. So he changes the island.
Yeah.
And I gave Ed's mom the information. She called, and Ed, honestly, just like Gordon said, like he's in his right mind, just says, hey, Mom, I'm done. I'm ready to come home. I want to come home. And I didn't believe it. Ed's mom called me and told me, I'm like, oh, get out of here. Ed did not say that. She said, no, he did. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, he wants to talk to me? Because he was always a little obnoxious when I would find him. He was friendly and then would take off.
Yeah.
And I call him, I call him on the phone. And he's like, Will, I love you. Thank you for coming to look for me. I'm like, who is this? And he said, we got one problem. My parents said they buy a plane ticket, but we don't have ID. I'm like, au contraire, my friend. I have that passport. And so I overnighted the passport to a guy I met in Oahu, and he picked up Ed at the hospital, drove him to the airport, and got him on a plane. And then my wife and I were there with Ed's parents to pick him up at Dulles Airport when he came back. And there's pictures in the book that show him coming in, and he was in a wheelchair. He's pretty banged up. And our church, my favorite church service my whole life was that church service. It was during the pandemic. You couldn't meet in the building. So we asked a local Baptist church, Mount Hope, can we use your pavilion outside? And they said yes. And so we threw this service for him, and I invited everybody that had ever lived homeless to find Ed. And we sang songs, and Ed came, and Ed's sister and her husband drove across country from Colorado to not miss it. And we celebrated his return. And I remember saying, stand up if you ever lived homeless to find Ed. And Ed saw all these men and women he'd never met that lived on the street to find him. And then I said, stand up if you ever prayed for Ed. And almost the whole place stood up. And I said, Ed, would you look at this room? Do you see how loved you are? And he teared up, and I invited him up front, and I gave him sandals for his feet and a jacket and a ring for his finger. And I said, you are the prodigal, my friend, and you are home, and we love you. And would you know that people at our church stood with Ed and would take him out every day? We'd have a sign-up list that Love on Ed, because there was no Narcotics Anonymous at the time. There was during the pandemic, if you wanted NA, you had to get online and stare at a video screen. Imagine telling an addict, you'll find support on your computer. Right. Just sit there and talk to strangers. Get out of here. We had people at our church literally every day. I'll have them to my house for dinner. I'll have them over to do some yard work, and we'll pay them. People just adopted him, loved him. He lived with his mom and dad, but then we would take Ed for a sleepover one night a week just to give his parents a break because they're in their 90s. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. His dad's a World War II vet. So anyway, it just was incredible. So Ed he messaged me June 5th and said, hey, Will, who turned 5? Who celebrates 5 years off the street today? I do. I'm like, no way, bro.
Oh, man.
So it's a miracle.
Amazing.
Yeah, we continue to go back, and there's, it's incredible that just the journey, but it changes you, man. When you love people, you get outside your comfort zone and love them the way you would want to be loved if you were in their place. It's a game changer. I'll say one last thing. This was an eye-opening thing for me. Our church used to do these meals in DC. We go to Franklin Park, Washington, DC. We'd feed the homeless, and we did a shoe drive and a coat drive and all sorts of stuff. But the first time I was homeless, it's midweek. It's just Steve and I. Brian went home, and we found out you don't have to beg for every meal. There were enough places that fed you, so we would go to where the feedings were and get meals were. Excuse me, feedings happen at a zoo. Meals happen for humans.
Right.
So we went to where the meals were, and we're at a meal at Mariners Point between Pacific Beach and Ocean Beach, and I'm waiting with all my homeless friends in line with my plate, and we look rough, dude. We haven't slept well, hair's all jacked up, sunburn. And I get up to the line, and the lady serving the beans says, you want baked beans? I'm like, yeah. And I said, hey, what church are you with? Who you serving with? And she said, oh, La Jolla Community Church. I'm like, that's so cool. That's so cool that you guys are out here. This is great. And I said, I'm a pastor in Virginia. And I'll never forget, she stopped and stared at me and did me a once over, like down to my feet, up to my head. And then she shook her head like I was full of crap and said, you want more beans, buddy? Keep moving. I went, oh, really? You didn't just do that, did you? And I moved down the line, and I thought, man, you lose dignity right away. You lose, a homeless guy tells you I was a lawyer. Sure you were. Sure. But to be treated as guilty first, prove your innocence later. And then I take my plate and I plop down at the table with other homeless guys. And I picture, in the beginning of Luke 15, the Prodigal Son chapter, it says Jesus was at a table with a bunch of jacked up people. He called the Bible calls sinners. And he's just loving them and eating with them. And it says he was accused of being a friend of sinners. And I wonder, are we accused of this? Could we be accused of the same? Because even the lady serving the beans she's in a power position. It wasn't until I took my plate and sat down with the homeless and ate alongside them across the table, and we were equal, that it changed. Otherwise, they see me differently. So serving is great, but when we can reduce ourselves to their level, ironically, was God's plan to save the world. I will become one of them. I will leave the comfort of heaven and be mistreated by mankind. And knowing you're going to spit on me, beat me, crucify me, and accuse me, I will love you that much. And so I feel like that the big spiritual word for that in theology is incarnation. And God calls us, be with them, man. Be with them. Get your hands dirty. Don't, it's nice to work in a soup kitchen, but when you're done serving, take a plate and go sit down with them. Ask them about their family, about their kids, about their story. Anyway, that's all I got.
Wow. Will, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for asking, man.
We round these conversations out with two questions. And the first of which is, was it coincidence or God?
Obviously it's God, but I would say this. Sometimes you and I pray stuff like, God, will you do this in my life? X, Y, or Z, right? I want this. Will you do this? And God does not answer it the way we want him to, or in the time frame we would expect or appreciate, correct? My prayer to God on that very first trip was, help me find Ed and bring him home. Very first trip. God did not grant my request. Not on that trip.
Right.
I mean, the journey of meeting Crazy Ted, and having him tell me. And by the way, part of the reason I call him Crazy Ted, when I offered to pray for Crazy Ted, he said, "You can't pray for me." I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Because I am the Lord." I'm like, "Oh, are you?" And I kind of gave him a hard time. I'm like, "Well,
That's
Ted, I kind of got to doubt your credentials because you also told me you knew where Ed was and you were wrong. So, what kind of God doesn't know where people are? It's tricky." So, but I mean, God puts Crazy Ted in my path. And in a way, when he said he was the Lord, I feel like God did speak through him. God used him in my life to say, "You're not going to find Ed now, but I want you to come back and live like them. I want you to come back and get your hands dirty." And I'm so grateful that God didn't grant my request. I would have missed this whole journey. Wouldn't have met Kyle. Wouldn't have had a gal named Candace come home and get off the street. Wouldn't have had Ed come home. Wouldn't have had all these other people that went with me whose lives were transformed. I've had business people do this trip with me and say, "This changed my entire life, how I see people." And you can apply it everywhere. So 100%, not only not a coincidence, it was God even not answering my prayers on purpose, because God always sees bigger. He zooms out. We see this. He's like, "Nope, I got a bigger plan. Trust me. Trust me."
His ways certainly are higher.
So that would be my response is, not only was God in it, but thank God he didn't answer my requests, that he knew better, because he knew I needed to change. So.
Yeah. Amen. All right, Will, final question for you, man. How has your life changed as a result of all of this?
I think my heart is bigger. Grace, man, grace. We all want grace. People on the street want grace. Not everybody wants to give grace, but everybody wants it. If you want it, you got to give it. You can't hoard it. You got to, it's funny, the whole prodigal son, everybody knows that story, but I think a lot of us forget the story was not even about the lost son. It was about the older brother who was so arrogant. Jesus was delivering the story to the religious leaders who judged him for eating with sinners. And he was saying at the very end of the story, there was a pissed off older brother that's like, "Why don't I get a party?" Wah,
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord's like, "You're my son. You're always with me." And they didn't. The older brother doesn't want the younger brother to get grace. And what the older brother doesn't see is he needs grace just as badly. But he's so arrogant, he doesn't even see it. So for me, grace, man, we all need it. We want it. You got to give it to everybody. People that piss you off, your neighbor, guy on the street, your marriage, your kids. It changes you, right? So that'd be it.
Yeah. Will, thank you. There's so much depth here. And there's so much more that we could cover. And yet we prayed about this before we hit record. And I know we've covered the right ground. Thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's been truly a pleasure. I want people, though, to be able to hear more of your stories, more of your experiences, because the thing that we oftentimes talk about on this show is that they can be both inspired and have aspirations. So both inspirational and aspirational. So tell us how we can find out a little bit more about some of your books or the missional work that you guys are doing in real time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my wider story, I wrote a book called Along the Way. Don't forget to remember. That's more my story, my life story, and I weave in some of the Ed story. That's on Amazon. I wrote another book called 99 for One. That idea when Jesus says, a good shepherd leaves the safety of the 99 for the one that's lost. And that was my picture with Ed. That's a tattoo on my arm as well. That's the street signs from San Diego and California. But honestly, I'm about to yank that off the shelf, and we're doing a rewrite to tighten it up and working on a potential TV script. So hoping the story gets out. And but honestly, website enduranceleadership.org is where our main trips are. If you want to join us on a trip, if you want to support our journey, we're 100% faith-based. So we live off people that feel like God wants them to partner with us. And a lot of people do that monthly, and that's how we make it. My wife and I have never had a ton of extra come in. It's always just enough, which is good because it keeps us praying and keeps us going, okay, God, are we going to be okay next month? But hey, man, we felt like God called us on this journey in March of 2013, and God's never missed a beat, man. 12 years later, I'm not hungry. God's hooked us up. So, hey, join us on the journey. You can sign up, email me at will@99for1, will@99for1.org, and I can add you to our newsletter. If you want to get a newsletter, join our trips, join our support team, or grab a book. But you could also do is just go today, get your hands dirty, and love somebody that needs grace. And I guarantee you'll be blessed for it. So there you go.
Praise God. Praise God and amen, man.
Oh, appreciate you. Thanks, Mick.
Well, Cravens, been a pleasure, man. Thanks
Likewise.
a bunch for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. 100%. Right. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Was it coincidence or God? You decide for yourself, but I believe you just heard a story for His glory. When You Look is powered by stories just like this, and yours could be next. Go to whenyoulook.com/be-a-guest or use the link in the description below. Drop us a comment and share this episode with somebody that needs it. Until next time, thanks a bunch for listening and watching, and God bless.